A younger generation, probably not reinventing yourself yet, but you're probably trying to figure out who you
Who
are,
you are. Yes.
right? If you're just out of school or you're a couple years out of school, you've had a couple of jobs and you're like, don't just swing like Tarzan and grab the next vine and swing on it. Be intentional about it. And be really clear. There's things on the list that you don't like to do that you may have to do, right?
Hello, this is Alastair, and welcome back to the Venture Variety Show. This is a podcast where I talk with founders, investors, and operators about how startups and the stories around them get built. Today's guest is Cathy Brooks. Cathy is an executive leadership and communication strategist. She's a longtime storyteller and a coach. And Cathy and I dive into the work of reinvention, especially later in life, and what it means to carry your skills forward. We also talk about why AI should be treated as a tool and not as a crutch, and how boundaries, whether in leadership positions, in teams, even in dog training, help to actually create more freedom. So let's jump in and say hello to Cathy Brooks. Cathy, tell us about yourself. What do you do?
I love that you started with that question. It is the question. It is probably the question we all use. Right, Alastair? It's
What do you do?
What do you do? And it is the question if you talk to any HR interview coach, it is the last question that you should ask. It's things like, what are you working on that has you excited right now? What are you curious about? And at the same time, we need to define ourselves. And I think that appropriate for the topic that you and I are really going to dive into today, this idea of career reinvention and navigation later in life. How do you define yourself? And I would say about 9-10 months ago, I found myself out with some friends. We were just sitting and it was a bunch of people I didn't know. And someone asked me, so what do you do? And I realized I was giving them this very perfunctory explanation of the job that I was doing at the time. Now, which I'm still doing, which for the record is a job I enjoy. It's a job I'm very good at, and it doesn't define me. It's a bunch of skill sets that I utilize that are the who that I am, but they're not who I am. And I think that, so for me, if you're asking kind of how do I categorize myself, I'd say executive leadership and communications strategist. Now, how does that get applied? Where does that get put? And the truth is, it's like a Swiss Army knife. I can do anything that I like with it. I presently have one role with it, actually a couple of roles that I have with it. And at this point, what is my reinvention? Where do I go in the next chapter of my life? I see so many people of our generation who have defined themselves by career for so long and now are finding they can't do precisely what they've done. And they're trying very, very hard to put lipstick on a pig.
A pig right
Lipstick
there.
on a pig, which is why I keep this little guy on the desk, right? The putting lipstick on a pig of how do I add in the necessary buzzwords and skill sets to make myself viable, as opposed to how do I take all of the knowledge that I have and experience
Mhm.
and then apply it to something I've never done before and reinvent myself in a new way. I am a career chameleon, I guess you could call me, that the entirety of my professional arc from the time I graduated with a journalism degree from Northwestern back in the Stone Ages, through my arc in Silicon Valley to pivoting and opening a dog training facility funded by Tony Hsieh in Las Vegas, to
Yeah.
becoming an executive coach, to working in construction, sales, and brand evangelism. Every step along the way, every pivot in that process has been me taking what I know, this vast toolkit that I've continued sharpening and polishing over the years, communication, conflict resolution, leadership, change management, operations, public relations, marketing, and the list goes on. And then applying it.
I want to ask you about reinvention, but I want to say that there's nothing wrong with having all that different experience in your quiver, having, being able to say, I've done this and that. It's almost like we're meant to feel shame for having different arcs in our life, that when people ask us, "Hey, what do you do?" You're supposed to just give a quick little, "Oh, I'm a, I don't know, podcaster. I pump gas. I deliver mail." I'm a flight attendant. Why can't we be more than that?
We can. And I think that on the one hand, the human brain needs to be able to place someone in a place we understand, right? We need to
Compartmentalized
have
kind of?
some sort of when I think compartmentalization, I think kind of control and pigeonhole.
Mm,
It's more reference and identification. Right? I know people who have done X role, and so I identify you with that, right? Which can be good or bad, depending on what that thing is. But it gives us an ability, a reference point. So I do think to a certain degree, being able to articulate the skills that I have, the way I apply them, but then keeping that separate from the who I am. Who am I? What makes me tick? My mentor loves to say that of my artillery of superpowers, one of them is I can talk to anyone about anything at any time in any place, which is a true superpower. I can
that
walk
is.
into uncomfortable conversation very comfortably and see all of the truths that are true at the same time. I also have the ability to hear a thing and internalize it very quickly and turn it around and have knowledge about it. Integrate that knowledge and weave it in to my tool set very quickly. So I adapt very quickly. I learn very quick. It
Wow,
all
you're
comes down
probably a
to
great journalist.
you know what? I didn't suck. I didn't suck. I think for me,
Yes.
what I wonder, and I think that this is probably a larger social statement, that in a time where having identification, community, feeling safe, feeling connected, feeling like I'm contributing has
Mhm.
perhaps never been more important than any time in our modern history, certainly not in my lifetime, that our ability to know who we are as individuals, to be able, I can look at myself with rigorous honesty. I know what I don't do well. I know what my bad behaviors are that pop up when I'm uncomfortable. And I think it's never been important from an economic perspective, in terms of economic success, in terms of businesses doing well and running as healthy businesses, not just financially, but having teams that are working together well and communicating well, that are supporting each other through times of trauma and stress. Every organization is a collection of humans, and humans have a human experience. And if the world is stressful and people are scared, they will bring that with them to work. So how do we as organizations navigate those conversations? And it comes
Yeah.
with each individual being empowered. That's part of that reinvention and navigating that process, I think.
Is it easy to reinvent oneself? It almost sounds like a skill you have to learn. Or
Aren't most things a muscle we have to grow?
yes.
Really? I mean, I would say there are probably some for whom it comes easier than others. There's some for whom it comes easier than others, for sure. That adaptability is innate to my beingness, if you will. I've always been someone who didn't really belong in one place. I kind of moved around lots of different places and fit comfortably in all of them. So for me, perhaps it was a little less of a stretch. Except what I can say about my younger years, a lot of that was because I wasn't comfortable in my skin, right? So I moved
Yes.
around a lot and stayed on the surface. But I think that, so for me, in candor, a lot of that adapting and changing as a younger woman was because I hadn't done some of my deeper personal work, if you will. And so I'd get uncomfortable and I'd move, right? I stayed on the surface and kept people kind of out here because that felt safer to me. Over the years, I've done a lot of work and found that my skill set of adapting has retained. Now I just do it with intention. Now I do it and can get connected. I also now trust myself. I had a situation a month or so ago where I was talking with one organization. It started out great. And I got to one conversation and every warning bell went off.
Oh, wow.
And I tried to talk myself out of, well, this is just one person. It isn't, I tried to talk myself out of it. And I realized, and I sat with it for a minute, and then I realized, wait a minute, this isn't a fit. It's not a fit for them, and
Hmm.
it's not a fit for me, and that's okay. That's really okay. And so to be able to then let it, okay, next. And that's where the resilience comes in, right? That it can feel like you're spitting into the wind or yelling into a void, pick whichever metaphor you like,
It can be
that you
frustrating, difficult. Yeah.
hugely frustrating and difficult. Online applications are a load of horseshit. Online job boards for
100%.
anything other than kind of an entry level position are really useless. And no discredit to them. When I was hiring at the Hydrant Club for dog handlers, that's where I found people, right? On things like Indeed, for example. They're great for certain purposes, but if you're looking for mid-level to senior level positions, they're not hiring those from the resumes on the job boards. They're just not. They have them posted there. And you can click on apply. You can click on easy apply on LinkedIn. You can do all of that. But the likelihood that you're even going to make it through the gauntlet of AI that's screening the applications is probably pretty low. If you do make it through, the likelihood you're gonna get the "Thank you very much, but we talked to other candidates," or more
If you're lucky, yeah,
whatever,
you'll get a rejection
and
letter.
they may reach back and let you know. And it's funny because I went through a period where I put out, I don't know, 100, online applications, and I saw the ones where my application was truly a better fit, and it took them much longer to get back to me, right? And then I got the, thanks but no thanks kind of thing. And
Mm.
so like I've had that experience. So I know, and it's gotten worse today. So how do you reinvent yourself?
Yes, I was gonna ask. Great question. How?
Yeah, so the first thing is figuring out, like, I am a huge fan of pen to paper, and Alastair, you know this from having
Mhm,
worked with me. And I'm not talking finger to keyboard, and I'm not
mhm.
talking the notes app on your phone. I'm talking a good old-fashioned legal pad and a pen. Pencil if you care for it, but pen, whatever. And writing a long list, like, here's all the shit I'm really good at. And then go through and identify of the things you're really good at doing, the things you really love doing. Because some things you're really good at doing, but you care for less. So identify those. And then make the column of like this shit you don't know how to do, the stuff you're not very good at, and be honest. Like, what are the things you're not good at doing? What are the things you don't like to do? Look at that list. And if you cross-reference the lists, you can say, "Oh, okay, and this is where AI can be a really good tool."
Mhm. Pen to paper, that's something any founder, any business person, anyone can do.
Yes, anybody can do it. A younger generation, probably not reinventing yourself yet, but you're probably trying to figure out who you
Who
are,
you are. Yes.
right? If you're just out of school or you're a couple years out of school, you've had a couple of jobs and you're like, don't just swing like Tarzan and grab the next vine and swing on it. Be
Mhm,
intentional about it.
mhm.
And be really clear. There's things on the list that you don't like to do that you may have to do, right? So then I start diving down deeper. Why don't I like to do them? Is it because I'm not good at them? Usually. That's usually the answer. I don't like doing it because it takes me a long time because I'm not doing it. I don't do it well. Okay. Is there a way I can learn to do that better? Or are there tools I can utilize to help me execute those tasks?
Hmm.
And the answer on that second one is almost always yes. Right. And so, really going through that list, cross referencing, and then utilizing AI as a tool to say, okay, so here's all the stuff I do well. Here's all the stuff that I know I need to do, but I need to get better at it. What are the top 5 job titles where those are the skills that are necessary?
Yeah, and you'll have your answer.
And you'll
Yeah.
have an answer probably in less than 5 seconds,
Hmm.
right? And then, okay, now take your resume. Okay, can you recommend how I might rework this resume? What are the key points in my resume that I need to highlight to show that I can do this? So here's a pro tip. Do not generate your resume using AI. I'll say that again. Do not
Hmm.
generate your resume using AI. Use AI to give you
Two.
bullet points, to give you some guidelines, and then be a freaking human and talk like a freaking person and make a resume that sounds like you. You
I'm
never
curious,
do.
in your work as a communication strategist, in executive leadership, do and what you just described, using AI as a tool, as a helpful tool, do you find that people rely on it too much as a crutch? In just your own universe and the people you're talking with, is it predominantly you're finding AI is that people are leveraging it too much, using it too much?
Humans are so lazy. We just, as a species, are
Unfortunately.
the most complacent, lazy. I saw this, I see this with people with their dogs. I saw it at the Hydrant Club for the 10 years I did that, for the years. The first question that people ask when they find a dog trainer is, I have a insert age, insert breed or breed mix dog
Right.
here. It is doing insert behaviors here. There's a kind of pretty standard laundry list of bad behaviors people don't want their dog to do. How long is that gonna take to fix, and what's it gonna cost me?
Yeah.
You just told me you know what the answer is. You've paid $4,000 here, $10,000 there, $3,000 here. You've spent all this money to change to get answers that you're not taking the advice. So I know you know what to do. You know what to do, but there's that 8-inch connect, like, there's something happening in the 8 inches between here and here that's not connecting.
Mm.
And the response that I got from people, this is why I went into leadership coaching, because the response that I got usually delved into self-worth issues. They felt frustrated that why won't the goddamn dog just listen to me? I'm an executive, I'm a leader, my business. And then I started
Yeah.
asking them, well, how do you lead your people? Because if you lead your people the same way you lead your dog, you probably have some pretty unhappy people. Because I got to tell you, if I were working for you and you were treating me like that, I don't know how long I would work for you. Well, my attrition rate is pretty high. Huh. Okay. Well, do you think that maybe changing and adapting your behavior could change your result? I mean, what's it going to harm? I mean, change your behavior and don't get a different result. Okay, I'll be wrong. I'll give you your money back. Change your behavior. Dog's behavior changes. You've just made an investment that's valuable, as opposed to just setting fire to your money.
I love your dog training analogies because they resonate so well with what we're talking about with people, like you said. How they train their dogs is probably a lot how they act in business and whatever it is they do in leadership. As I'm sure you train people with who are guardians to dogs, that boundaries are important. How are boundaries important for us humans? For the founder audience, for the entrepreneurs and investors in the audience. How do boundaries come up?
And I have gotten an opportunity in recent years to get kind of up close and personal with that very dynamic. And it is equal parts frustrating and toxic. It creates a toxic environment when you have leadership that doesn't belong where they are and doesn't have the tools to lead. Because being a manager and being a leader are not the same thing. And what the world needs is more leaders because leaders don't manage, leaders empower, they elevate, they delegate and give the team a sense of purpose and belonging. And so when we have boundaries and guidelines that are clear, consistent, and communicated. I should say clear, communicated, and consistent in that order, right? So the lines of delegation, the lines of responsibility are very, very clear, that each individual on a team knows exactly what it is their role is designed for and exactly what they are supposed to do. And they also know what their next level is, right? So if I want to grow, where do I need to go from there? What else do I need to show you? I'm not just checking these boxes. What are the other boxes? So that's the part. So it's clear. It's communicated well, meaning there is an open, honest, and authentic flow of communication among the people on the team, among the management down, and the team upward. That the flow of communication, that anyone can talk to anyone about anything without worrying that it's going to end up with them being penalized or negated, or that it's going to get them in trouble, or they're going to be marked as difficult. Right? And they have to be consistently enforced, which means if there's a rule, it applies to everybody.
It
It
should.
applies to everybody all the time, under all circumstances. And so boundaries, the thing that's really interesting, getting into the Hydrant Club was very, very difficult. We had these very strict, before you even brought your dog to the assessment, there was all this medical stuff that had to happen. There was a very clear set of guidelines and steps for how to approach the facility and to do your assessment, and how, like, there was a full run of show for how the whole thing was going to go start to finish. And the reason for the structure was so that all of the potential things that could throw a dog's behavior off were removed. So I was getting as pure a view of the dog's innate relaxed state as possible.
That was Cathy Brooks, executive coach, strategist, and someone who has gone through her own reinventions. I really liked her candor about navigating change. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe and share it with a friend who cares about leadership. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time on The Venture Variety Show.